Welcome back to the Higher Bracket Podcast. Real business owners giving real life advice. What's going on?
Just another day. It's a little wet today here in the South.
Yeah, it is that. Yeah, I don't mind rainy days every once in a while.
No, especially when your grass needs it and all that good jazz.
Right, yeah. But
we got some subjects we're going to talk on today. We'll start off with banking.
okay.
What are your thoughts on banking as far as a good bank versus a not so great bank for individual as far as a business owner? Let's talk about, having a good contact and good communication with a banker.
Yeah, no, it's key. You get it, having a bank that really doesn't give a shit about you is it's just frustrating for one, and it wastes so much time. So networking and relationships when it comes to small business is so important, and it definitely goes along with your banking. You got to know your banker, and you need to have one contact at that bank that whenever you call, they're going to answer that phone, and you are pre-approved for everything and anything you ever need. So it's basically just a click of a button for them. It saves you so much time and energy.
What do you think makes a good banker in your eyes?
Somebody that understands your business, for one. Like, they understand exactly what you're doing. They just don't shake their head yes and no whenever you're talking about what you're trying to do, your vision, your business goals. They kind of need to know exactly what you got going on and see what your path is to expansion.
I notice a lot of banks, your bigger banks, you're just a number.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I don't speak Spanish.
No, I mean, that's that corporate banks. I mean, most banks are corporate banks, but you find you a bank with a small town feel that could do big things for you is absolutely key for sure.
So you think a smaller bank is the way to go, or what's your thoughts
No,
on
not
that?
necessarily. I mean, a smaller bank, yes, smaller banks are good for when you're just starting out, in my opinion, but I think a bigger bank gives you more options. And because I've switched over from a smaller bank to a bigger, which I have multiple accounts with a lot of different banks, but on the business side, I feel like a bigger bank gives you more options as far as lending and reward, not rewards, but incentives to keep your money in that bank.
You always felt like when you're the little guy, the little banks or the small banks, small community banks and stuff like that are more prone to help you out a little bit more in the beginning.
Yeah.
Is been to my what I've learned from my personal experience.
Yeah, when you don't have any money, a smaller bank is going to help you more. You're going to pay more for their services. 9 times out of 10, they're not going to have as many features available to you, but they're more apt to. A smaller bank, like whenever I was running my trucking company, I could walk in and directly talk to the underwriter. So it's like you got more access to people with a smaller community bank versus a bigger bank. But once you reach a certain tier and you need to go further, then it's time. Your banking needs to grow with you and your company.
Would you keep your personal bank account and your business bank account in different banks, or would you run them together? What are your thoughts?
I don't think it really matters to be honest. I honestly think that's personal preference.
I can agree with that. I've done both.
Yeah.
But I've been with a bank before. It was a little bit bigger outfit, and just the trouble of swapping everything over. I mean, it'll take a whole week just to do it. Then you got to get with all your vendors and stuff like that, and you got to order new checks. I mean, it could just be the biggest pain in the dick.
Well, yeah, and it's like you need a banker that, like when you're swapping everything over. In my past, it's like the banker will set up you an account, and then you're pretty much on your own. Whereas the bank we're with now, with I guess all of our companies really, she knows it's a process. Our banker knows it's a process, and she helps us step by step through the way to making sure it's a smooth transition. Because it is it is a pain to switch everything over, but it's necessary.
I'm not even gonna lie. That lady impressed me. I won't say her name, but she come in and I gave her a chance. She said she would take care of everything, that I would not have to do nothing but sign. And I'm over here thinking, yeah, bullshit. But I was so fed up with the bank, I had to go. A swap had to be made. I had to face the music. And sure enough, all I had to do was sign, and she took care of everything, made it so seamless. And that has never been the case for me on something like that. So,
Right.
she's been great in a lot of different aspects. I can always call her up, and she'll get it settled right then and there. So, I was very impressed with her.
Yeah, it's whenever you it's cool to be able to get to a point where instead of you going and basically begging somebody to do business with you, it's cool to be able for them to come to you and say, "Hey, come do business with me." That's when you kind of know you're getting somewhere.
I agree. Let's swap subjects. Moving on to the next thing. Let's talk about a good woman.
Yeah, you better have one. That's all I can tell you.
What do you feel that a good woman or a woman in general brings to the table? Let's talk about in your enterprise and outside of your enterprise.
Well, I always say there's a passage in the Bible, and I'm not too keen on what exactly it is, and I'll paraphrase it, but it says, a man is better off alone in the desert than he is at home with a complaining wife. And that is so true because, your wife or your significant other or whoever you spend your time with when you're not during your business hours or functions, they could either propel you so far forward with encouragement, or they can hold you back and restrain you with bitching, moaning, selfishness, and not seeing your vision and have no idea what you're trying to do. So having a woman in your corner that knows where you're going and is along for the ride it's invaluable.
Do you feel that a good woman will help you work through problems? Is that something that you work together, or do you just kind of stay separate? Like there's certain things you don't talk to her about, I guess.
You don't tell your woman your problems. You can mention that you've got some things you got some things to handle to work out, but don't be talking to women about your problems. Talk to your brother, talk to your dad, talk to your best friend, talk to your business partner.
Are we talking business wise or personal wise?
I'm talking about everything, because a woman will hold that shit against you.
I can see that.
I mean, it's like, and I'm not saying not be a good communicator with your partner, your wife, and I'm not saying hold everything in. What I am saying is that woman is looking at you as a leader, and she's looking at you as the president of that organization, and the last thing that she wants is a man to come in every day, every other day, and whine and complain like a little girl about problems that he should be solving on his own.
Yeah, I when I was younger, I had that issue of not really communicating well. I would let stuff build up, and I'd just hold it until I exploded. It wasn't until I got older till I realized, hey, communication is key on a lot of things.
Yeah, no, it is, and that's just my personal. I mean, that's just me. If I got an issue, I'm coming to you. I'm going to my pop. I'm going somewhere else. But I'm not going to burden that. I'm not going to burden my wife with things that I could very easily solve on my own.
When it comes to women, in your opinion, would you say that they need to encourage you?
Oh, absolutely.
I feel that, if they are always not encouraging you and always shooting your ambitions down and stuff like that, it's pretty much time to move the fuck on.
Yeah, I mean, there's no point.
You got to have some, you got to have support. You got to have, and you got to stand by no matter, what they decide to do, if it's within reason and fucking logical, you need to, always be their cheerleader too.
Right. And this whole deal about, man, this is going, people are going to shit on me for this, but when I'm doing business with a man, or we're in some kind of conversation, and he says, "Well, I got to talk to my wife about it," bro. We don't even need to do anything together because there's nothing to talk about.
Right.
If you are on your purpose,
unless she's your damn business partner,
right? If you are on your purpose and you're on your mission, there's nothing to console your wife about when it comes to business, and probably 99% of personal things too, because you are the leader, you're the president. You make the decision. So it's like, if you have a working relationship, she already knows that you're going to do what's right. There's nothing to talk about. My wife with, you know what I mean? It's like,
I don't say shit. I just roll up because it is what it is.
That's one of my pet peeves, man. And another one of my pet peeves is when these guys say happy wife, happy life. It just makes me, it gives my body like, it makes me like tense when people say that, because no, that's not how this shit goes. It's happy me, happy we.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because there again, if the man's the leader, he is going to dictate the success of that family with his wife.
Well, and a man has 2 jobs: to provide food and shelter. And I think women need to be independent in a certain aspect of, they don't need you, but they want to be with you.
Sure.
So they don't exactly rely on you. I think that's a good rule of thumb.
Sure.
Because if they're dependent on you and they're unhappy as fuck, then they're holding up your life because they can't afford to go somewhere or move on.
Yeah.
Because they're too dependent on you. Now, there are women out there I've seen. This is kind of trending in the past several years. You got this big, strong push for independent women. And that's great if a woman wants to be independent and she don't need no man or whatever. But don't be fucking bitching because you don't have a man or can't find one because your standards are too high.
Yes, but in their defense, somewhat in their defense, and I see this a lot in relationships, the woman feels like she has to take a masculine role because the man is so feminine anyway. He can't make decisions. He has no goals or direction.
Oh, I thought we were talking about real man here.
Well, that's what I'm saying is, but it forces the way that a lot of these men are out here these days. They're just, the pussification of men in society is disgusting, and that it forces that woman to become the masculine role, to become the leader, and women by nature are not wired for that. So that's why it doesn't work. That's why most relationships are in complete hell, because the woman is trying to take the man's role, because the man won't step up, whether he don't want to or he doesn't know how to. But that is one thing, as a man, you've got to be the leader, and you have to be the leader that your woman looks up to. And that's why like I said, that's why a lot of these relationships are shit, because these men are so passive. They have no goals, no direction. So men need to step up as well.
I agree. But not every man's like that, but you're running into more and more of them.
Oh yeah.
On the female side, you run into them. Well, he's got to make 6 figures a year. All right. Well, all of a sudden, you put that out there, okay, well, there's only about 16% of men that make over 7 figures. All right, well, half of them are going to be married.
You saying 6 figures or 7 figures?
Just over 6 figures, over $100,000 a year.
Right.
So automatically half of them are going to be married, so you're down to 8%. Okay, well, then you want them buff and all that shit, if that's your preference or whatever. Well, damn, now you're down to 2%. And then let's say you meet one of those 2%, those guys in that 2%. Well, now you got to sell yourself to him, because maybe he's not looking for you in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely you ain't gonna be out there, you ain't got nothing to offer, but you've got these strict high standards.
What a lot of women don't fail to realize is you can take a man that's got drive and ambition. Yeah, he might be working a $40,000 a year job, and he might be able to be a good leader, but he just needs that push, that encouragement from a partner. But a lot of these women don't realize that they could partner up with a man, and together they could grow the kingdom.
Absolutely. Make a better team.
They'd rather just have the guy that, balling out right off the start. And like you said, good luck, because there ain't that many of us out here that, in a grand scheme of things, and their standards are too high. Just point blank, period.
Let's get into a little bit of that. I think we could go so many different directions, but I'm gonna go this direction. Okay, so a woman that is looking for one of those guys who's got all this money off the bat. Let's talk about debt, and we'll get into personal debt and bad debt. But a lot of these guys that spend all this money, I mean, they're so damn leveraged up, living for the moment and not thinking about the future. Going back to somebody that might only be making $40,000, but maybe they're only making $40,000 a year because they're still working. And the smart thing to do is to live below your means until you can get to a point where, okay, it's okay for me to go out and buy some luxury, because, if I'm buying a car, and let's say, for instance, let's just make it a high-end sports car. Let's just say a Corvette, or we can even go to a Ferrari. Okay. If that's paying for something like that, and it's only 1% of his net worth, buying a $300,000 car, at that point he can afford luxury. But just because he makes $1 million a year don't mean that he needs to buy those luxury items. And that's shooting it kind of high, because you can make six figures and leverage up. I mean, hell, you can be $1 million in debt easy, just off, $100,000 salary.
Yeah, and if you've got a shit ton of personal debt, and you want to try to do the small business route, dude, you are setting yourself up. It's going to be, because owning a company, growing a company, expanding a company, or being an entrepreneur is hard as hell anyway. It's the hardest thing you can do. It's the hardest thing there ever was to do. When you first do it, people make it look easy. People make it look easy. You add a shit ton of personal debt onto that, man. I don't know.
I think just the
screwed.
Stress level of that would get me.
Yeah.
If I had to worry about paying these bills and trying to build a company at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I don't see no problem with business debt.
No, there's good debt. And bad debt.
But personal debt.
Here's where the personal debt fucks people, is because when you start a small business or you start anything, by default, but to get that off the ground, you have got to decrease your lifestyle. Now, if you go out here and you run up $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 of credit card debt, let's just say, well, decreasing that lifestyle just became 1,000 times harder, because you've got minimum payments on that stuff. So, being a rich man is a man with no debt.
I believe that.
And it just opens you up to so much more in life. So keeping that personal debt down is absolutely, it's key.
What do you think about, most people finance their home. What are your thoughts on that? On just financing big purchases like that? Now, financing cars is just stupid. I mean, you can go buy a $10,000 car and it might not be nothing special, but as long as it's reliable. But let's talk about personal residence. I don't think
there's not necessarily anything wrong with because everybody needs a house and home, and I don't feel like if you can afford it, like, you've got to get to where, now this day and age, this conversation even 5 years ago is totally different than what it is now, because with these mortgage rates and everything gone to the moon, people are getting over leveraged. like terribly over leveraged.
If you was to finance a house, what do you think the best finance options would be, as far as if you were going to buy a house all over again and you had to finance? Would you go with like a 10-year, 15-year, 30-year? What is your...
I mean, I don't know. I'd have to. It really be dependent on what I was trying to do. But 15-year obviously would be, I think, the best route. A 30-year I don't think is bad, but just get a 30-year mortgage, but plan to pay it off as quickly as possible. But I think people need to be able to put down a substantial amount of money on a home.
Like 20%?
I think so. I mean, this is just what I personally believe. I think that would stop a lot of people from getting house poor.
Do you think a house is an asset, or do you look at it as more a liability?
I mean, it is technically an asset in my opinion, because like for my house, for example, I've got, I don't know, I mean, $700,000-800,000 in equity there. So if I had been renting that whole time, but that's unrealized gain. So really, is equity really anything to brag about?
It's hard. It goes up and down. So with the market the way it is and the things we've seen in the past, so if you was to, let's just say if you paid $300,000 for a house in a couple of years, let's say in 2020, you bought a house for $300,000. And then you sold it 2 years later, but it was $500,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That you were able to sell it for. Well, at the time, you have to throw that $500,000, all their equity back in to buy the same thing or equal to what you had. So, there's no gain there. Now there's a gain when you sell it. I think when people finance homes, in my opinion, like a 30-year loan, you're gonna to really make any money, you're gonna have to sell it for 3 times what you paid for it.
Mm-hmm.
So you buy a house 30 years later. Well, by the time that all that interest and stuff adds up, you've already paid 3 times the price of the damn house.
Sure,
and that's not include, and that's with all that interest and stuff. But that's also not including fixing it up, fixing things that go wrong with it. That's not including your property taxes and your insurance. And then, also you're going to have to do, in those 30 years, you're at least going to have to do a couple of remodels.
Right.
So, it's something that you got to have a roof over your head. So, some people, you hear people talk about, hey, renting's the smart thing to do, or buying, there's all kind of different views on it.
Yeah.
And to each their own.
Yeah. But to answer your question, I mean, a home is an asset and a liability at the same time, because you're always dumping money in to a house. I don't care.
There's always something to fix.
I don't care if it's 30 years old or if it's 2 years old. You are putting you have to have money to be able to keep this house up and going. So, I go back and forth on that. I'm glad I own the house that I own. I feel like it's an asset, but it's also a liability to my pocket, because it's a house and you've got to keep it maintained. So there's a lot of differences of opinion there. But now on the rental side, I don't think it's a bad thing to rent at all. However, you don't have nearly as much control of your monthly expenditures on what it's going to take to stay there, because somebody could come in and say, okay, well, it's going up $500 a month, $700 a month, $1,000 a month, and that's a one drawback that I see about renting.
If I was a single man and didn't have a family, I'd fucking rent.
I wouldn't. Yeah.
I'd have a little 1-bedroom apartment. I wouldn't be messed up with it.
Yeah.
But that's. When you can't, it's hard to put a family in a 1-bedroom apartment. I mean, hell, there's 5 of us in my household.
Right. But anyway, going back to tying this into business, is you just have to live below your means at all times. And I know that's relative to making 30,000 or making 2 million, but still, there's so many people in society these days that are driving a car, or living in a house, or going on vacations, or wearing what they wear. You can name it all for other people. And I just don't understand that. Like, other people that they will never meet, that they will never know and never talk to, but they have to, but they want to put themselves in a hole to impress people that don't matter. And that blows my mind.
When I got to a point where I was making a few $1 million a year, my lifestyle didn't really change. I didn't really spend no more extra money. I only went on one vacation a year. I just invested it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see no sense in raising my lifestyle. I felt like the lifestyle that I had was decent enough. I didn't need anything extravagant, and I learned as I was younger, just having some of that stuff, it might make you seem happy at first, but then you're just like, why did I piss my money away on this? Preferably speaking on cars when I was younger. Mm-hmm. I love cars, and hey, I'd look good in that, and I'd buy it, and 3 or 4 months later, asking myself, why the fuck did I buy this? And ended up selling it. That was one of those things I had to learn, and I guess I've been in my early 30s.
Well, that's what I tell all the younger folks, that don't get you a car that's reliable and they'll get you from point A to point B, and forget about it. Like, I don't know, me and you together combined, we've probably had 70 cars, right. Probably 70 cars combined, both of us combined. And me being 40 now and looking back on all that, how much it didn't put us in a bind by no means. We were still living below our means, even buying the cars and stuff, but it's a zero sum game. You're not, cars will put you behind quicker than anything.
They are about the most depreciating asset that you could have.
Now, with me, I like race cars. So, that's even worse than buying a hot rod or a supercar or whatever. But there again, I still live below my means. I raced until it was time to stop racing. So it's just like, it's crazy to me to watch people just keep going and keep going and keep going and keep digging that hole and keep digging that hole, and with no plan of getting out of it.
I think racing is an addiction. You look back, being down there on the track, them little guys are down there. They're giving up their kids' diaper money to go to that track.
Sometimes. Yeah.
But the expression around the track. They take that stuff very seriously.
Yeah, it gets in your blood, and that's just what you want to do. So, but I'm not going to put my family in any sort of what I always said about me doing, and this goes for any hobby, really. You want to have hobbies and stuff, and for my hobby is if it ever came to my family or my hobby, well, the hobby's out. That's family's the number one most important thing, and I would never put them in a position where a hobby negatively affected their life.
I think hobbies are great to have, no matter how big or small, whether your hobby is reading books or building engines. I think a hobby is great for the inner child and just all around, good for your soul. It doesn't have to be expensive. My personal hobby in the past several years, I've had many through the years, but I like watches. Mm. So that's really been my hobby for probably the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. No, everybody's got to have something, outside of what you're doing from the day to day. But really, if I can just continue rolling on with business, making deals, I made a strategic partnership this week, and I'm really confident and looking forward to that. So to me, that's a hobby, like that gets me going, thinking about the future and where we can take, one of my companies. That's just something that I enjoy doing now. So, but yeah. Anyway, all this point being, the point of all this really is don't be a dumbass and spend more money than you have. That's just it. It's just that simple.
You see it every day.
It's that simple.
You see it every day.
All day.
Well, I think, today's the subjects we've talked about thus far, we'll see banking and having a good woman and debt versus personal debt, and definitely living below your means. That's definitely a good thing. I think when you're younger, it's a lot more, you got to have more self-control to live below your means. The newer generation, I think they're having it, there's a lot of minimalists out there. I think that could be a good thing for the younger generation to not have as much stuff as you need. You don't need a bunch of clutter. You don't need a bunch of, just absolute bullshit.
Yeah, it gives you options in life to do things. But, tying this all back around into business, this all plays a part in the success of a company, because it all plays a part. Because what happens from a man from 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. directly affects his performance from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So you go home, you got a bitching wife. You go home, you're faced with unsurmountable debt and payments and just stuff that doesn't matter. You don't think that's going to affect your business? It's 100% going to affect your business every day, all day. And and I don't have any type of statistics, but the likelihood of you failing in business because of your personal life are extremely high.
Well, I think a lot of subjects we talked on today are everything that you need to have as your building blocks. A good woman being a foundation, the right mindset when it comes to good debt versus bad debt, and discipline in your debt or in your cash flow or income. I think, all this, you got to fine tune all this stuff, and it doesn't happen overnight.
No, it's a process.
And all of it always needs work. So, you get one thing fine tuning, and, you might have to go back and fine tune it at a later date.
Well, what it all really boils down to is delayed gratification. And if you cannot delay gratification, you just need to work for somebody and just live a simple life, because that's really what business is all about. You have got to see 10 miles down the road and know, like, yes, I could have this. Yes, I could have this, but I've got this dream, this vision, this goal down here. That if I do X, Y, and Z now, I'm not going to get there. So
let's talk about once you reach success. What do you think that is?
Well, I don't know, because I don't think I'm ever going to reach it, because once I get to a goal that I've set, before I even reach that goal, I'm already setting another goal.
All right. Well, let's talk about, what about classifying success?
I think success is kind of a personal thing.
I believe.
Somebody waking up and going to the gym in the morning, they could feel successful the whole day. But I think it's a relative term of that person.
I agree. I think, in my opinion, success is happiness. It doesn't matter, if you're rich or poor in that aspect. As long as you wake up every day and you're happy with your life and you're happy with things and you've got good people around you, I think that's just successful. Sure. I don't think it has a damn thing to do with money.
No. There's successful people that have made $35,000 a year, but they love their family, they love their life, and they're good with that.
I just think that's a great thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. But I guess this was a pretty good talk. We'll probably wrap it up here. But I will leave the audience with one thing that I heard, and it stuck with me. It's easier. Like, say you want to have a goal. I want to save $20,000. Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, it's easier to go make an extra $20,000 than it is to already save what you're currently making. So get out there and get to work.
Please like and subscribe. Thank you for joining us today.
Peace.